No, all we want is fair. Okay, so if we're getting hit, that's a foul. And I'm one of the nicest bloody coaches in this league, but this pisses me off. Just be fair.
Since basically forever, and specifically this year, referees in America has been on everyone's mind, especially when it comes to the WNBA. The fans have been complaining all season. Coaches and players have been complaining about it in press conferences, though they got to be careful to not get fined because they cannot publicly be seen criticizing the refs without the WNBA saying, hey, give me some money. The WNBA refs have been through it all season long. As someone who has aspirations to be a women's basketball pro referee and has gone through ref training on a high school level, I know how hard it is to be running up and down the court and trying to be able to catch everything from 5-second calls to carrying to travels to fouls. Y'all, it is hard. So you will unintentionally miss stuff. You'll miss calls. And you'll get criticized on the court by players who could make you really, really doubt if you really saw what you think you just saw. And then you got the fans and the media, and whew, it's a lot. It's a lot. All that criticism definitely does not make me want to really, really pursue it as a career because refs are professionals, but they are human too. And just like people miss stuff, refs will miss stuff as well. And it doesn't mean they necessarily have a bias and agenda, though they're called, bias all the time. And people are saying that they have an agenda. So I want to give the referees the benefit of the doubt, right? Just by looking at the training I went through, which is nowhere near the training that professional referees go through. It was a lot. And I missed calls, and it was a lot to sort of keep in my head and to make stuff happen. And it makes me want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But then that goes away when I'm watching a game as a fan or a neutral observer, as I like to call myself sometimes. And I see the referees looking right at an obvious foul, and they don't call it. And I'm wondering, what are you doing? I look at travels being missed a lot. I look at flagrant calls being missed and not reviewed. I see moments of times when the referees get whistle happy, blowing everything, even on non-existent calls, or fouls that are barely there. Good thing there is the challenge system right now, and some of that bad calls from the referees can get overturned, but it's not perfect, right? It's not perfect because you only get one, and if you win that, you get a second one, and if you lose the first one and it's obvious call that was missed, you have no way of rectifying that situation, so you have that. And then, because I'm an American, because I love the NBA, I remember the Tim Donaghy story. And I remember for years how this man, one of the top refs in the NBA, fixed games under the nose of the league for years until he finally got caught. And it really makes me wonder, what is the mix of referees in the WNBA? What's the mix of competent referees who sometimes make mistakes, and that's understandable, to incompetent referees who just need to go, and compromised referees who need to be publicly exposed? So yeah, just kind of chew on that for a hot second. Competent, incompetent, compromised. Compromised, i.e. betting, or some other way that person is compromised. So my internal thinking leads me to this year's 2024 WNBA Finals, which have been amazing so far. Absolutely amazing. Some of the best finals basketball that I have ever witnessed. Crazy close games. It's been theatrics. It's been fire. But it has been another display of the officiating issues that the WNBA is consistently experiencing. After Game 3, Cheryl Reeve, the head coach of the Minnesota Lynx, said this after Napheesa Collier had only 4 free throws in the entire game, and Breanna Stewart had 10 free throws.
The game's called differently for Fee than it is for Stewie, for sure. You look at the same, level of activity and around the rim contact. For whatever reason, we have a hard time getting to the foul line in this series.
A thing to note in Game 3 is that the Lynx were called for 18 fouls, while the Liberty only were called for committing 13 fouls. And in Game 3, the New York Liberty won a crazy shot by Sabrina Ionescu. You fast forward to Game 4, and the Minnesota Lynx, it's sort of in reverse. The Minnesota Lynx are only called for 9 fouls, and the Liberty got called for 14 fouls in this game. And with the fouling discrepancy, head coach of the New York Liberty, Sandy Brondello, was pissed.
My question will be for Coach. What does it mean for this team that, 2 of your best shooters can shoot a combined, I believe it's 10 of 37 from the field, and yet you only fall by 2? What does it mean about the status of this team, and what can that do for momentum going into Game 5?
Yeah, look, obviously they're great players, and I think Stewie said it. I think we took some shots. We probably could have moved it a little bit more. But look, I will say this, and I look at the thing here, and I know Cheryl talked about it last time, but we got no calls today. So do I need to talk up in a press conference? Because they were getting ticky-tacks, and we went down there and got hit and get nothing. It was like 12-6 at halftime, and they tried to even it up near the end. It was 14-9. All we want is fair. Okay, so if we're getting hit, that's a foul. And I'm one of the nicest bloody coaches in this league, but this pisses me off. Just be fair. If they're getting hit, it's a bloody foul.
And after those comments by Sandy, Cheryl Reeve was asked about Sandy's comments, and here is what she said.
Yeah, Cheryl, Sandy was in here and said that she thought your complaints about the officiating led to a favorable whistle for your team. She said it was not fair, and she was pissed off, and she used another word I'm not going to use, and this might be your last chance to comment on that topic before Game 5. Do you have any response to that?
I didn't get a response from the league. I have a text to prove it. I think that, I think Fee has some things to to prove that the fouls weren't called. That's unfortunate. I guess I don't really have much more than that.
So sure, Sandy wants to complain about the refs in Game 4, but there were times when the Liberty were hacking the Lynx and the refs called nothing. Same in Game 3 with the Lynx hacking and fouling the New York Liberty, and no foul was called. It has been on the season. Minnesota overall has been called for 58 fouls, and the Liberty has been called for 56 fouls. So it's pretty even in terms of the total amount of calls that's been called. Now, guys, a thing to note is that the whole series, there have been missed calls on both sides. There have been calls that should not have been called that were called fouls. There have been ticky-tack calls that should have just been avoided at all costs, right? And for particular games, one team benefited, right? In Game 3, the Liberty benefited from the calls. In Game 4, the Minnesota Lynx benefited from the calls. But overall, it's been pretty equally bad for both teams when it comes to officiating, as someone who's watched all 4 games so far in the series. So my question to you is, what do you all think about the finals games that we have seen so far? What grade would you give the refs? Do you think it's been equally bad on both sides when you look at the whole of the series, not just one particular game? Also, I'm curious to hear what you all think about the WNBA referee situation as a whole. What is your percentage for competent, incompetent, and compromised refs? And do you think that the WNBA can actually do something about it? Because again, it's not like it's a crazy number of people trying to become referees. And again, even if you have really good, competent referees, they're going to miss calls. Like it's inevitable because they're human. Unless unless we get robots to call games, that's the situation that we have. It's the same thing in MLB. And when it comes to the umpire calling balls and strikes, like what's a ball, what's a strike, and how their eye can be different from the fans and the media eye when it comes to that stuff. It's the same thing when it comes to the NFL. When it comes to pass interference, sometimes being called, sometimes being not called. You know, it's a thing on just about every single sports level, and of course, it is also a thing in the WNBA. A thing to note, guys, a very, very important thing to note is that a large contingent of WNBA refs who ref this year in the WNBA will be going to a college women's basketball game near you and reffing that game. Yes, a majority of WNBA refs, they also ref for the NCAA and the NBA. So yeah, it's basically the same people kind of recycling around in the basketball professional reffing circle in America. But hey, maybe you want to get in the fray and become a ref. I'll tell you this, it's crazy hard, and it's a lot. But if you have that itch to become a referee and be one of the competent ones, you should absolutely do that. Absolutely, positively, you should do that. Anyway, that is the video. If you all could do me a huge favor and share this video with someone, that really does help the channel out a whole lot. Recommendations are huge, and that really does help. So share it on Reddit, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it on Instagram, share it in a text message to your friend who also complains about the referees in another sport. Share this with them and say, hey, it's not just you. Referees as a whole have been an issue, especially in America. I don't know as much about overseas, though I will say international referees, I do see, at least on the women's side, do tend to be better. They tend to not call a lot of stuff, and they tend to let more aggressive play be had. And I am all in favor for that as long as you are consistent. And for the most part, there is a lot more consistency on the international side of women's basketball when it comes to refereeing. We saw that in the Olympics, where overall they were able to just to play, and they were, it wasn't the same types of calls that would be called in the WNBA, which I like.
I don't see a friend in your contacts. What is your friend's first and last name?
Siri, stop listening to me.
Okay, I won't.
Oh my goodness. I didn't even say the name, and whatever. Anyway, thank y'all so much for watching the video. And if y'all could do me a huge favor, again, share it, like it, subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already. We are on our road to 30,000 subscribers. I don't know if we'll ever get there. But if you love women's basketball, if you want someone who loves the game, and has been watching literally their entire life and wants to talk about it, like if you want to listen to that, if you want to join in the conversation, I highly recommend you subscribe to the channel. Consider joining as a channel member or joining the awesome people on patreon.com/Quita Loves Sports. All right, I'm Quita, and this has been me talking about the WNBA referees and how this is a situation that has been talked about for years and has been talked about this year, and a situation that will never, ever, ever end, because us as fans love to complain about the refs. It is just a thing. Players love to complain about the refs. Coaches love to complain about the refs. But the most important thing to note is that the referees should never be the determining factor for your team winning or losing. If that is the case, and if that is your complaint, that is your ultimate complaint, your team did something wrong, because you should never, ever, ever leave it in the ref's hands, because if you do, you're going to be pissed. So I leave you with that. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.